All right. Welcome to episode, what is this, 13? Live
13.
from the Ley Line.
What's it called? Unlucky number 13.
Ooh, the cursed episode.
Yeah.
Well, we're very lucky.
Rebellion. Here we go.
I love it. I love it. We're lucky to be accompanied by Dr. Zane Newitt here today in the house.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, I'm
My
I'm just thankful to be here. What you guys are doing is really important, and I'm just honored to be some small part of it.
yes,
Oh,
sir.
we're honored to have you, man. We're very excited for this one.
This is my father. A lot of people out at sporting events and stuff like that like to call us brothers. I'm like, thanks.
Hell yeah.
Compliment for him, I
Hell
Right.
guess.
yeah, it is.
That's a two-sided compliment insult situation.
Yeah.
You both got some type of way to feel about it. That's funny. Oh,
Um,
I love it.
so, Dad, you just sent me a video on Instagram today. Um, what are they trying to do to the Constitution? They're trying to merge some World Health Organization type stuff into it.
Well, it doesn't take you don't have to be a genius in algebra to know what words like all mean.
Yeah,
In our Constitution, the founding fathers were in their brilliance said all legislative power is here invested in a Congress of the United States.
yeah,
Knowing the corrupt nature of government, they loaned power to our representatives for all lawmaking powers, because then when they become corrupt, as they will, then you have at least a chance in hell of throwing them out of office and doing something about it. Well, what we're seeing now is um, a lot of treason by way of treaty, where our government enters into treaties or accords with foreign entities such as the World Health Organization, the UN, etc. And it's an end run around our Constitution because the treaties have the effect of law. So we're not bound by them. They're not legally binding. They're wholly contrary to everything our country was founded upon. But here we go. The WHO has issued this global pandemic treaty, which basically creates, I think they said on the video today, over 300 different
yeah.
amendments
300.
that use a crisis, as always, as a pretext, in this case a health crisis, to take away our essential liberties. So it's here we go again on a worldwide scale. People just understood that only Congress can make law, not the executive branch, not some judge, and certainly not some foreign or international entity. So that was the nature of the article. It's really
Okay.
scary shit, and that's set to be ratified and put into place within the next 12 months.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
God, that's terrifying. That is terrifying.
It's the
This
Yeah.
is
old
what the
problem
Constitution
reaction
was written
solution.
for.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's important to remember the Constitution doesn't give you rights. It's not some magical right giver, but it's the best, in the tradition of the Magna Carta and some other amazing documents over the course of kind of Western civilization. It codifies rights that you already have,
I
natural
was
rights.
gonna say, so you say it doesn't give us rights because we have God-given rights,
That's
right?
right.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but it does the best in any kind of experiment of human government, of at least capturing the 6 or 8 things the government should do and otherwise leave you the hell alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Right. Right. Man.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue into I think we both wanted to ask you, when did you Dad, when did you essentially, I don't want to say wake up, but when did you wake up and get involved so heavily in politics? You were
yeah,
like
we
17, right?
Yeah, we kind of use that term "wake up." I mean, you
Yeah.
do go from kind of a sleeping, and not that people that are asleep are less intelligent, but they either have blinders on or just haven't been made aware of what's going on around them. But for me, it was at a young age. Now, I grew up. I was I was a '90s teenager.
Yeah.
And at that time, you couldn't go. There was no Google machine at that point. You actually had to go to a library. Even at that,
Yeah.
the internet was just newly being stood up, and information, you could find it, but you had to really diligently put in your work to read it. So things that the two of you are already, I was more naive at 17 or 18, whereas gosh, when Avery was 14 or 15, he already probably had a foundation in things that I didn't pick up on until I was between 18 and 20. But anyhow, I was just grounded in classic Rush Limbaugh, vanilla mainstream Republicanism, meaning I thought best man wins, free market, small government, basic fundamentals that just said, if two people, have the freedom, whoever wins the race should win the race. Those types of concepts were sort of drilled into me from a young age. And then I started to observe as I was dabbling in politics that the Republican Party, to just name them, court people that are liberty minded or believe in freedom, but then chronically and consistently and by design, then betray those very people. So, for example, take anything, the federal, and this is more so about the federal government. So when we say the government shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that, there might be a place at the state or local level on a small basis to have some involvement. But when you talk about things like education, agriculture, energy, entertainment, you name the field, the government, that Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution enumerates the powers that the state loans to the federal government. 90% of the fucking shit they do is nowhere to be found, meaning it's not a lawful power that we, the people, have said, yeah, the government should be involved in that. So what I found at a young age is the Republicans, instead of asking the fundamental question, should the government be involved, they would just come in and say, we're going to spend 10% less than the other guys on this initiative, and then call that conservative. Yeah, so it was like funny math. The Democrats are going to spend $10 on some initiative. The Republicans are going to spend $8 and then call that a savings of $2. No, you spent $8 of Cameron's child's money, his child's money, because we can get into the printing money out of nothing thing. I'm sure we'll get there.
We will.
So at a young age, I just kind of have a rudder on of basically just not being bullshit. Like, it's like you're asking me to give my time, talent, or treasure, whether it's getting involved in events or organizing or hitting the phones. And really what they're doing is kind of a technique of gatekeeping and taking a block of people that the three of us, the great thing about freedom is, and the wonderful thing is, we're not all going to agree, but we have that foundation in the fact that the state should leave us the hell alone. And we should have a free debate in the market of ideas, not censor and control one another. So people that are liberty minded, whether it's a libertarian, a constitutionalist, people of that ilk, were basically at that point in time, weren't really a lot of alternatives. You would be courted by the Republicans, and then they would just simply betray you. So something was just not sitting right with me. And then my waking up, as many 90s people who had a little bit of that foundation, was really born in 3 events, in no particular order. They all happened around the same time, but Ruby Ridge, so Randy Weaver, he was entrapped by a federal agent for having hit the barrel on his gun. Remember, shall not be infringed, but the barrel on his gun was too long. They trumped up a bunch of false gun charges on him, staked him out, shot his family. He happened to live. But that was a huge...
I remember
that. I think they did a documentary about that on Netflix.
So I'm in the 90s, you got the big 3 for me were Ruby Ridge. It's like, this isn't a conspiracy theory. The federal government is creating ongoing pretexts to take your firearms, which and all rights hang on the ability for us to put a bullet in the whatever stormtrooper is at the door trying to take our rights. The right to hump who you want, worship how you want, do whatever you want with your dirt. If you can't pick up a sword or a gun and defend yourself, every right hangs on the Second Amendment. So you have Ruby Ridge. So I can't recall my age, 17 or 18. Oklahoma City bombing. Before Building 7 just fucking pancaked on itself magically. And Bush Cheney declared war on the world unconstitutionally. You had Oklahoma City bombing, and that was a huge formative event in my life. Just like things you all could rattle off, the fact that the main alleged actors were already identified within an hour. You knew all of their background. They happen to be right-wing kooks with mental instability issues. One of the two, Terry Nichols, was immediately shot and killed pretty much on the spot. Timothy McVeigh, they threw him in a nut house forever. The physics of how this Ryder truck somehow took out this federal building didn't make sense. The fact that there are no federal agents working that day, the daycare was empty, all these facts lined up to say, oh, this is probably what we now call, I didn't know the lingo back then, a false flag operation. Way back in the 90s. So I didn't have all the facts. I didn't put it all together, but I knew there was more than meets the eye at Oklahoma City. For sure, it seemed like a big charade. And then the last one was Waco. So you had the Branch Davidians, Janet Reno rolls up with violates posse comitatus. It uses the military against civilians. Again, in this country, were they religious nuts? Yeah, but you have the right to be a religious nut.
Correct.
So I have the right to be a kook, and might be opposed to my version of your kookery, but it's like Voltaire says, I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
I love it.
Yeah, so they rolled up the tanks and took out those Branch Davidians, just flattened them.
Yeah.
Kids died, women died.
Yeah, women and children. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And the
fucked up.
common thread for those three events was it's similar to 2016. There was a populist, freedom-oriented movement going on. And then back then they used the word terrorist. So to be a Christian, gun-owning, freedom lover of any flavor became a bad word overnight. Back then in the 90s. Oh, and they use those three events to say, oh, look at these bad, right-wing, mean, white Christian males, and off it went. So what you all are living through is and your generation is at a much louder magnitude and scope, but the playbook has been pretty similar for a long time. So that kind of woke me up. The final thing I'll share, and then kind of turn it back over to you all for questions, or next part of the conversation is, I was running for office at a young age, and I was asked to go join a particular secret society. I said, this is very cliche. I think I'm stealing from a movie, Avery, called The Skulls. Anything secret and elite cannot be good for our neighbors. So I kind of investigated this particular secret society. They were having one of their Look at Me charity events that they do.
Yeah.
I kind of pretended like I had to go to the restroom or whatever. I went upstairs into the sanctum sanctorum where they do all their ritual work. This was in Glenwood Springs. On one side of the wall, they have lists on golden placards of all their past worshipful masters. What a humble name for the person that presides over all the ritual work in the lodge, right? Can't just call it like a president or quarterback or something. Worshipful
quarterback.
It's just a list of every noteworthy Republican, lawyer, construction dynasty, politician, as far back as like into the 1860s.
Yeah.
But amazing thing on the other side of the wall, list was, guess what? All the Democrats. And it was the biggest, same thing, dynastic families that have been in Garfield County for 100 years. And at that, I was like 18 or 19 years old. And I said, forget about what happens at the Hollywood level or whatever. Well, if it happens here, it's bigger at that level.
Yeah.
I said, in our own backyard, that means 0.0001% of the population represents 100% of your choices at the market when you go to vote. There is no choice.
No.
So even though they're pretended enemies, it was the same fucking boys club running both parties. So that's when I kind of got out of. I forever said I'm not going to have anything to do with the Republican Party, and then I went and joined the Constitution Party. And again, joining a third party, there are some arguments that you definitely are less effective. I don't have a magic wand answer to this, but on principle, I said I can't run with people that pretend to be for freedom and ultimately are just the opposite. They just kill you a little bit slower than their counterparts on the other
Yeah.
side. So that's that. So
Yeah. So obviously,
Wow.
obviously I was raised on all this stuff and I knew it for a long time, but I was 12 or 13 just getting into middle school when I really, really would hear the stuff that you would say. And then it's kind of how me and Cameron became friends. I would hear the stuff you'd say. I would go and watch videos, do my own research, and then I would go straight to school and I would talk to Cameron about it.
Yeah.
And then
awesome.
Cameron
Yeah.
would go and come
Yeah.
back the next day and be like, "Have you heard about this?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, you're showing me stuff now."
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
For
iron sharpens iron. That's how you learn stuff right there.
Yeah, what
Goddamn right.
really, really, really blew my mind was when I watched a video about how Disney, we did a whole episode on this. They fill their stuff with subliminal messages, and I was like,
Mhm.
holy cow, I grew up loving Disney, even the princess movies. I don't care.
Dude, they're
Yeah.
awesome. They're
Loving
great
it,
movies.
loving it. And then I was like, holy shit, they're putting dicks and dildos and cuss words and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff in their movies. And I learned about Walt, and I was like, "Whole that really blew my mind."
Yeah.
What about you, Cam?
Um, yeah, kind of the same awakening. My stepdad had showed me Bohemian Grove,
Ah,
and that's where I kind of awoke into this. And he was talking about, the Bush family and Cheney and how they were working together to the war. One was destroying, one was building, and they were both making money, switching it back and forth to each other.
Amen.
yep,
And that's when I got into secret societies because I was learning about Bohemian Grove and I was like, what are they doing? I saw the cremation of care
yeah,
ritual and gave me super like evil satanic vibes. And I was like, I don't know. I've always been a fan of horror. And so that was the
yeah.
side of conspiracy I delved into, was like the dark demonic shit. I know we talked about like end days that were coming all the time and like
Oh yeah,
potential antichrists that were around or whatever. And
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I got into all this shit.
yeah,
Yeah, similar. And in the horror genre, some of them are working to expose that through that genre. Like there's a lot of truth encrypted in horror films as well.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
It's not all and it's kind of like with anything, it's not all bad guys out there, end quote, in this great movie that we're participating in. Some of them try to get the truth out there through different forms of media as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say Stanley Kubrick was trying really hard to get this
Yeah, that's a
message out.
great example.
And
Yes.
then he made Eyes Wide Shut and then dies. Almost immediately. Like,
Right.
and that
Yep.
movie is very telling about secret societies, ritual, satanic abuse,
Yeah.
sexual, like sex magic,
Yeah.
all the shit they're using at these high levels to maintain this power. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, very scary stuff.
Yeah.
So
When Avery was young, I used to go on a speaking panel. It was called Ministry to Masons. I don't know if Avery remembers this, but our whole objective was to help people get out of the lodge. And during that time, we encountered children that had suffered SRA or satanic ritual abuse at the same time that the official public narrative was that it was made up by conspiracy theorists and didn't exist. That was a really interesting chapter of my life, just actually doing some of that work and seeing some of those kids, and their whole being is systematically shattered. They're there but not there. Like Manchurian Candidate. I mean, it's almost a little bit of a Pavlovian lever on certain keywords, kind of
Yep.
calls them to do things. So yeah, it goes way down the rabbit hole, but that stuff is real, because when you're mega wealthy and you can't put money in that hole, the mega elite, they turn to all kinds of things to fill that god-sized hole in them, and it goes as deep and dark and nasty and satanic as the human mind can
Well,
imagine.
they
yeah,
have to keep upping the ante,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Have you guys seen the leaked video of the British kids? They're like under 8. I think they're 8 and 7. And I'll find the names and we should almost link it because this is important. But there's a leaked video of them being interviewed and they're explaining how they were rescued, right? They were rescued from satanic rituals or whatever. And in the video, they are talking about how they called him Papa, of course. They would call him Papa. captor, he would make the kids kill the babies. Have you guys seen that video?
No,
Oh
Jesus
man, it'll
Christ.
blow your mind. They would make
Is
they
that
would,
Jimmy Seville, or is this more of a recent thing? Is that back from that
it's
time?
old. It's old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, he was the head. He was
God.
kind of the main. He was the Epstein to the Lizard Queen at that point.
Yeah. That's probably exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sinister stuff. You can't
Yeah.
even imagine. So
That's so
Um,
fucked up.
one thing we wanted to talk about, I've mentioned before on the podcast, Dad, how you kind of feel like there's still a way to fight and get back, whereas my viewpoint, I'm kind of to the point where I just want to go out and hang these evil people. I just want to burn it down. And so me and Cameron were interested in hearing from you, like, how do you think it's salvageable at this point?
well, I do think I don't think mankind is getting better. I think
Yeah,
we've fallen and getting worse. So I do agree with you on that. It's more of the it's the complex decision as a parent and business owner on when do you take up arms.
yeah,
It's not that you're compromising, even by being on this podcast, the wrong person hears it. I have, and that's fine. I
yeah,
have 100 employees. Let's say each one of them has a spouse and 2 kiddos. Talking about 350 souls that I'm accountable to. So a
Right.
lot of like-minded people like myself, it's not that we're compromising. We're just trying to figure out a way forward.
Right.
right.
Because I'm still accountable for providing for your mom, the family.
Yeah,
But also, if we don't, there's not going to be anything left to fight for if we don't do something. The reason you hear me, I don't think we can fix this place through politics, but it's just figuring out in your local influence, how do you stand up for it and buy another day of freedom before it is a
Yeah.
full on. There's a line of thinking that says they want to create a full-on war because they know they have more toys than we do and we will lose, and that will imminentize the eschaton because it'll just fast forward the agenda 2030, just
Right.
make it that much faster. But then part of you saying, well, the founding fathers were taxed at an aggregate rate of 2% and put bullets in people's heads.
yeah,
The theft that happens to the three of us is around, you really can't stack them all up. Income tax, which is a communist progressive tax, a
Oh, I
direct
know.
tax. That's not the government's business what we make, but I digress. Sales tax, property tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax. You're looking at 40 or 50% of what you work your ass off to earn is stolen from you. The
Yeah.
founding fathers just hazarded their lives and took up arms. So I probably, like you guys, I waffle a little bit. Like I'm still trying to find my way on when do we just actively fight against this versus teaching people, educating people, having civil resistance where you just say, I'm not going to go along with this. I'm not going to pay the fine. I'm not going to be gagged. You're not going to shut my business down. So I kind of just don't know, Avery. I mean, what are
yeah.
your thoughts? Do you have a set of criteria for when enough is enough? I mean, that's what we all need to come together and have, like, what are the 3 things that we're gonna say we're gonna go with the bullet box, the from the ballot box to the bullet box now. I don't know.
I would say probably when they are finished buying up the rest of the farmland and they force people out of suburbs and send them into cities
I
where
think when
they
they
literally come door to door and they're like, you can't live here. We've bought the land. You have to go live in this city stacked on top of each other.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I mean,
That'd probably that'd probably be the line.
it sounds like you're ready to strap on and just get organized and militia style and just do it now.
I'd be down.
I certainly just don't disagree with that. There are 80, if it's true, 80 million of us
Yeah.
that are reasonably like-minded.
Yeah.
So it's just getting organized and figuring out, like those 4 boxes of liberty. You got the soapbox, preaching, talking, and they want to censor us. You've got the ballot box, but they're hijacking and stealing elections. You've got the jury box, so you have jury nullification, and that's what people don't talk about a lot. Is the way that was designed by our founding fathers is, let's say there's a bunch of unjust, tyrannical laws. A well-informed jury can disagree with all that and just cut you loose anyhow.
Yeah.
It's one of the most critical safeguards of liberty. And it's often like every attorney on both sides lies to the jury and
Oh,
says,
I know.
must do this or you must do that. No, it's called jury nullification. They can find you guilty of something and say you have to do 10 push-ups and go home. Like literally, it's a
Wow.
check against tyranny. And a jury of your peers, this whole idea of it's supposed to be people that don't know you, have never heard of you, so they're utterly objective. That's not the design. The people that should judge you if you potentially screw up and you're innocent before guilty, it should be very hard for the state to take away your freedom. They should, of course, know who you are and your character,
Right.
like
Be
that.
able to
So
defend you.
yeah, and then
Case.
so those are the three boxes that lead up to what Avery's saying. So you've got the soapbox, ballot box, jury box, and then the bullet box. And you're right that we have to be close to that because there's no other solution. The founders in that colonial era, they're kind of like us. They would meet with the English, they would negotiate, they would look for compromise. They would say, look, people on both sides are going to die.
Yeah.
Kids, moms. So I think we're going through our due diligence to then just figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with it. Not
Absolutely.
having a clean answer on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the best ways you can fight against this personally is to educate yourself as much as you can on the Constitution and on the rights that you have as a community and your right to community. Come bring your people together and talk to them, educate your people.
Yeah.
And try and fight it from the inside out. We got to do it on a community level.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another thing that happens to us is we get like overwhelmed by how high it is at this level that we don't even think we can affect change. But you can affect change if you organize in your own community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing a great job of just creating a civil war. You're either this side and you're, an activist, all this, or you're this side and you're a racist bigot.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really hard because if we all could come together, it'd obviously be ideal because the way we believe is like he said earlier, we don't care who you hump.
Yeah.
You can go get married. You can have all these rights that you want. It's your God-given rights. True constitutionalists aren't racist and care about all that stuff. We just want to be left alone.
Correct.
Just like everyone else. So
Yeah.
I guess if we could somehow convey that message, it would be better. But they are just doing such a great job of if you're over here, you're here. If you're over here, you're this. It's tough, man.
From a political standpoint, I do think I continue to academically study the Trump phenomenon with no emotion. Meaning it could be a provocateur that was put in there to guarantee the Hillary victory, and then something went awry. He could be there to whip up and tickle our ears and say a few things that we like. While meanwhile, I mean, Operation Warp Speed, he was for the jab. People are complicated and it's not so black and white. He could be somebody that ran with that crowd and then change. People can change and he could be the real deal. So my point on that is I don't prescribe to Trump worship. There have been people fighting for freedom for a long time before that interesting character came along. But what he has shown is there are enough people they don't know where else to go. I don't think the Republican Party is the answer, but there's enough people out there that says, you know what, we can potentially abolish some of the alphabet soup that the elite are using to terrorize us. Trump pulled us out of the World Health Organization.
Yep.
So all the alphabet soup that we need to get rid of, the IRS, the FBI, the CIA, none of these are authorized by our Constitution to even exist at the federal level.
Well, they're parasites.
They're all terrorizing and torturing the people. So I agree with you, Avery. I don't know how it's going to play out. I get a little bit of hope, and maybe that's what you pick up, that we do have the right, we think the right Supreme Court justices in there that will uphold a strict interpretation of the Constitution if you can get Congress and a president that will just get some of those agencies off our back. I'm not saying it's going to magically fix anything, but it might buy time. If we could abolish the IRS, and this move of hiring 80,000 plus agents to go terrorize conservatives, there's a chance that the backlash on that we could see some positive change in our lifetime. It's possible.
I agree. Totally. Yeah.
So it's work. I think you have to just be balanced. Like, don't put your trust in any charismatic leader, probably controlled opposition and working on the other side, but listen to what people have to say, and no political movement is going to help you. It's just like Cameron said, at the individual one-on-one basis, just educating the hell out of people.
Yeah.
Right. And not being emotional. I think you made a great point about looking at it objectively and logically and not having a visceral reaction, because I think that's what's happening right now.
Yep.
Is people aren't even arguing facts. They're arguing like their opinions and their feelings. And like, you never hear anybody come up with like something legit that was bad about him. It's orange man bad, mean
Orange man
tweet.
bad.
Mean tweet. That's all it is. They don't give you any sort of, justification. Maybe they'll pull up the racist shit that he said, and then you show them the full video and show
the
that
full
taken
video
out of context. And it's like you were lied to by your media. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think on a one-on-one basis, so what my upcoming game plan is, I'm going to speak to the Moms for Liberty group out in North Carolina and just do a lot of education, like the power of words, like going right back to like scripture, and God said, let there be light. I mean, words create, they destroy, they influence. So just the power of words, and just teaching people like over and over again the basics. That's the best way to effectively make a change, and without much risk of even getting canceled. Just calmly, what's the difference between a democracy and a republic? And then take the individual or the small group setting through that. What are all of these isms? What's right wing versus left wing? Etc. I mean, we have to get rid of the isms. Every ism, communism, fascism, Nazism, socialism, those are all collectivist, central model, leftist movements.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody say you're a Nazi, you're a right-wing Nazi, and you're like, well, Nazi means National Socialist.
Yeah.
And you start breaking those things down.
Yeah.
It's like, get rid of the isms. So
turns out that's actually more like your belief.
Absolutely. You calmly start. Gun control, government-controlled healthcare, government-controlled education. The modern left has much more in alignment with 1930s Germany than they would probably care to admit if you systematically line up their beliefs. So
I love it.
Just the origin of rights. So we believe rights come from God. And again, that doesn't get into a lot of any religious bullshit. That's not you saying Baptist, Pentecostal, Methodist. That's denominational churchianity stuff. So it doesn't have to be in a Christian context, but it is similar to a Christian or a Judeo-Christian worldview that says there is a God. I'm not him. God, turns out.
Right.
He's separate. God is separate from his creation. So it's not the force. God's not in the dirt or anything. And because there's someone really above me, I am actually accountable to God. So tyranny is, I'm not subject to what you tell me. I'm only subject to something that is actually greater than me.
Right.
So I'm not subject to the government, my neighbor, a corporation, only the big guy up there. And it's such a simple concept. And then rights come and responsibilities come from God. And the only role of government is to protect those rights.
Yep.
That's it.
I agree.
And then you just literally just kind of stop the conversation. And that's not imposing your doctrine or your theology. It's saying, you can't divorce a nation or a community or any group of people from having a foundational worldview. Like an atheistic worldview doesn't work in a constitutional republic, because the more people think there are animals, the more there's an excuse to have the more they think they're monkeys, there's more of an excuse for a zookeeper to throw them in a in a
Yeah.
cage.
That's a solid point. I like what you said.
Yeah.
Because saying God-given rights might like scare some people away a little bit. I like how you said it's not doesn't have to be Jesus Christ to you. Just as a human being,
Yeah, that's
you
right.
have
Yeah.
given rights,
And
whatever you
there's a
want to.
kind of a dual founding of our country. One was kind of an occultic, you all know this, I'm preaching to the choir, kind of a Masonic, deistic founding. And then you had some actual the parallel founding was Christian ag-based kind of farmers. And you're exactly right, Avery. It's just the idea that there is a God,
Yeah.
pause. Rights come from that God.
Yes.
That's it. And that's not, then you're not imposing. Then you can go debate your version, your
Yes.
understanding of that over a pint. Go at it hard, hug each other, go, and then come back and do it again in a few weeks. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yep.
Yes, I completely agree. I think there's supposed to be that kind of discourse.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
I think that's what drives like better ideas and a deeper understanding of what's going on for both sides, is having that disagreement, and not in a bad way, but just
Right.
like throwing ideas back and forth, throwing them against
100%.
the wall and seeing what sticks.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You know.
That's, oh yeah, and we've lost all that with cancel culture, and
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
the whole discourse is totally controlled, quite on purpose. So any meaningful debate just, and then you can't really learn anything. Like Cameron said, how are you going to improve without being shown, oh, I was wrong, or I need to
Correct.
look at that differently?
Yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
how are you going to grow without any friction? Or it's like the lobster doesn't, when if he feels the discomfort of his shell, he knows it's time to grow. Get rid of the shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That analogy the other day, but that is
I
how you,
like that analogy. I've never heard
yeah,
that.
through a little bit of discomfort for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, and it's scary too in the age of the internet. It is so easy to get stuck into an echo chamber
Yeah.
of a ridiculous ideology that doesn't have any foundation, but you can go find people that agree with you. And then you
Right.
just get stuck. You get stuck in this echo chamber of people that agree with you, and your ideas never change, and they crystallize,
Yeah,
and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
definitely.
I want to switch it up a little bit. I think in the end, ultimately, AI is really dangerous and super evil because, now you can have AI generate voices and literally generate fake videos of people. So it can be really dangerous, obviously, but I kind of like the idea of why not use it while it's there where it is right now. Um,
It's a very useful tool if you
yeah,
use it correctly.
me and my dad just recently were looking into they have a new AI system that basically does all of the works of drop shipping. You know what drop shipping is, Cam?
Oh yeah, it
I mean, you
automates
work at
all the
Amazon.
processes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, it does that, and now you can basically create anything you want with AI. And I've been really interested in maybe getting into it a little bit.
That'd
Thoughts?
be
What do you
awesome.
guys think about it?
I think technology is neutral, so it's when it's controlled in the hands of the few. And I can constantly say like freedom is the answer to all of this.
Yeah.
If it's going to be evil and it's something you're selling me in a truly free market situation, which we haven't had. Like you want to, if people want to try something new, have a real free market. We haven't had one since before Reconstruction. Like
Yeah.
it's a new thing, have a real free market. But then if you're doing something evil, I just don't buy your shit.
Yeah.
But if it's a corporatist, fascist controlled industry, and I have to buy your shit, then of course the mad scientists are going to run amok. There's no check. There should be 10, 15, 20, 2,000 different small firms using AI and making one another better and keeping each other honest. So
Yep.
I'm not scared of it. Unless and until it gets put into the hands of the elite, and then off.
Right.
So that's my thought on it. Has
Yeah.
a lot of good purposes.
Yeah.
I think if we're getting it in the version that we have now, I can only imagine how long they've had at least that version.
Yeah.
or what version they have,
Good
and that
point.
they're keeping in the Cheyenne Mountain up here. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
know.
They've probably had it since the 40s.
Exactly. Exactly. They were using the AI to calculate when all the false flags should go off so that the
Yes.
numerology will add up and confuse all the occultists.
Yeah.
When they exported all those geniuses from Germany.
Yeah,
World War
goddamn right
II.
they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying let's go ahead and make humanoid robots that are AI. Never that. I'm just talking about using the technology on your
Yeah.
computer
Right.
to create stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make that clear. I'm not for freaking robots. All right.
Oh
I don't know
man.
why we even mess around with that stuff, but
No, that stuff's scary. They're gonna take us over soon enough. Did you guys see the video of the robot it was like a worker and it was like after like 5 minutes or so it just fucking collapsed. It's like, yeah,
just
I'm not gonna do it anymore.
self-destructed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting into that little Frankenstein territory and all that entails.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Well, and that brings up, I don't know if you guys know what a homunculus is, or the idea of that. It's essentially it's like an alchemical idea, and it's a vessel basically that you make that you put a demon spirit into.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's what a lot of people think AI is. That's what like
Ah,
the early ideas that Elon Musk had about it was that it's essentially a vessel
Right.
for something like Baal or Moloch to be able to communicate,
Yeah.
and have a
wow.
form.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I don't know how much merit that holds, but it's a scary idea to throw
It
around.
is.
That goes into
Yeah.
like the horror aspect of it, which
Well, that's interesting because an idol, like an effigy, if you will, that's really interesting because those are containers to park the disembodied spirits from the other side of the flood and worship them and in a certain sense kind of reanimate them. So all you're doing is taking that to a high tech
Yeah.
next kind of step. So there could be
wow.
some merit in that.
Yeah.
That's why we have a natural fear or with like dolls.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Thing that
Fuck
has
dolls.
some sort of a human like characteristic. Part of us is like, yeah, that's just a container for a demon.
Yeah.
So you're gonna park something in that thing that you made with your hands that kind of looks like me, but is a perversion. Like that's why clowns are scary because they're a perversion of the true. You take a real normal face and you stretch the lips out, you make the teeth bigger, and it's like
Oh.
you take the true thing and deviate from it. That's what scares the hell out of you because it's plausible and realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and clowns are terrifying,
Yeah.
to be clear. I fucking hate clowns. Oh man.
Yeah, it can really get into that transhumanism, though. There's no doubt about it. You can take the AI to more of the spiritual kind of level. Who knows? God, limitless possibilities for evil going down that pathway with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to take it like into like biblical, into a biblical sense, I think what they're trying to do, these dark arts occultists, their main goal is to produce the end of the world. They want to bring on the end days.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do, I think, with bringing in this AI and all these different idols that they make people worship, is they're trying to create the Antichrist
Right.
to bring this in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in my books that Avery refuses to read because he doesn't like books.
Oh,
I nailed your ass, son. There's
I'm the same way.
within the one secret society, there's two factions. One that's working to bring about the end of the world, so that Satan, the Antichrist, can set up shop and do his thing and fully manifest what they want to do. And the other faction is trying to put it off as long as they can. So to just enjoy, because Satan's already the God, little g of this world right now. So they're just trying to perpetuate this kind of false kingdom on earth. So one is driven to put it off, put it off, put it off, and the others are driven to like, let's get it on and bring it about tomorrow. So even at the highest level of the pyramid, you kind of have some of this going on. So
Huh.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Well, yeah, they want it for sure because they're gonna live like absolute kings while we all are slaves. So
Okay. I
they
was gonna say,
definitely
what's
want
the
to rush it.
incentive to bring that on for them?
Oh yeah,
It's
they're
a
just gonna do whatever they want.
Only if they're delusional to think, if they believe scripture enough to know that there's 7 years left, they have to somehow think that Satan will win. So they believe the
Yes.
book enough to know who God is, what his plan is, who Satan is, what his agency and plan is, but then they don't believe that it'll play out the way the book plays out. Because from that perspective, the last thing they would want, you would just want the status quo forever, a world mired in corruption and evil, a tiny elite of of bloodlines that connect to actual fallen entities, that connect to the actual prince of the power of the air or Satan. You just want this thing to go on forever. The last thing you would want is I believe in the doctrine of the rapture, that when the last person that is saved that fills the job of vacancies upstairs is saved, that we're out of here. So their job is to just keep people lost and confused and in unbelief. So I see both sides of it. That's why I kind of write about that. Like, one group is like, no, let's bring about the end. We don't need to be in the shadows. Let's just put a boot on in the face of mankind. But that's short-lived,
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really interesting to step into the mind of people that are into that stuff. And kind
Um,
of delve
a
into it.
lot of people who get out of cults like that, whistleblowers, if you will, they'll come out and they say on the videos and stuff that I've seen, they do believe, they 100% know they're going to hell, but they believe that it's going to be like a big party
Like
where
just an orgy all the
all
time.
the people with them, yeah, a big evil party that's not like, eternal suffering.
No, it's
So a
probably
lot
gonna
of
be a
them
lot
are,
more like Hellraiser.
yes, yeah, yeah. A lot of
Yes.
them are
Oh,
convinced.
Clive Barker is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them actually are convinced that Satan is a good guy and everything's going to be fine when they go down there.
That's probably part of the master deception
Yeah,
that he
exactly.
embodies.
Just ask those titans from the Greek myth. It's not mythology, but that are down there right now, how they think Tartarus is.
Yeah.
It's not a good time for the Peter writes about them, being in chains of darkness, down there bound, and Enoch writes about it too. It is not a good time. It's not hookers and blow down there. Satan's not down there. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the underworld.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
God of this world, and he still has access to heavenly places, even though he's positionally been kicked out. He still has access to those other realms for sure.
Yeah.
So that's another, just kind of, it's almost part of Christian mythology in a way of describing it, that Satan's down there with a pitchfork and all that kind of stuff, and it's not biblically true.
Yeah.
But
Right.
most people don't read the book. They just go to church and pay their tithe and sing or get entertained or have their emotions tickled and then go home.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of media too. I think all the
Yeah.
movies that you watch and all these fiction pieces that people create, I think are meant to skew what the real message is, because they know that not a lot of people are going to read the book if they portray it in this way when you're
Right.
Yeah.
young and they get into your head quickly with a preconceived notion.
True.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, it's a funny point as well, that we're getting into, like, why would you actually want to speed up end times? Because when the Antichrist comes, if you actually read the prophecies and stuff like that, he only rules for 7 years, right? Yeah,
That is
that is
correct.
a good point. Maybe they wouldn't want to speed it up.
Yeah. What's the only incentive there is either, I'm not saying God, and it's not dualism. Lucifer is just a little fallen angel. He's not God. But unless they're just fulfilling God's ultimate big structured plan of
Yeah,
it, or they're such narco megalomaniacs that they think they're going to win, and that
yeah,
and that probably could be some of it too.
yeah,
So they want every rewarding aspect of bringing about the eschaton, but then they think they'll defeat, there won't be a second coming, and it'll be Satan that's sitting on that throne for that millennial reign, basically.
Right.
So it's deception, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Otherwise, I'm with you. Why? Just keep it status quo, baby.
Yeah.
Roll the money, controlling people, crashing markets, creating bubbles, making money on both ends of economic turmoil. It's a good gig if you're
That's a great racket, I tell you what.
yeah.
Oh
It
man.
also could be though that just can't go on forever, and that might be why they just want to bring about the full manifestation of it, because once you fleece America, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
So it does actually have a shelf life. So maybe it's more like they know they can only do this for so long. You can only print money based on nothing, based on nothing, based on nothing, and then soon, based upon that,
Yeah.
Right.
for so long before it will implode on itself. So you've got that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Really, in their minds, they want to reduce us from 7 or 8 billion to about 500 million, have feudalism on the bottom and a technocracy, transhumanism on the top, with just a few of us that are necessary to be slaves and robots managing everything else. And they think that they will live forever. I mean, they're totally delusional.
Oh yeah.
So they think they are gods.
All the billionaires are so into transhumanism.
Yep.
Well, because they don't want to die. I think their biggest fear is leaving all this material world. Like this is all they know. And that is their God. They worship the materialism like you would worship your Lord. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, why would you want to die?
Fear of death, and death sucks. I mean, I'm 47. We all have little health hiccups. You think about those things, but we have a hope that it doesn't change fundamentally who we are. But you are exactly right. They are petrified of death. I mean, think about like Voldemort. What does it mean? Fear of death. I mean, the biggest meanie bad guys are petrified because you're right. You nailed it. This is all they have. This 60 or 70 year, if you're lucky, flash. That's it.
My goodness. You said Voldemort means fear of death?
Yeah.
Wow. That author told those stories in the most perfect way. That's why she's richer than the queen now.
Yeah.
That she was able to boil those, all the themes from the Bible down into this wizard story.
And all the
fucking love Harry Potter.
Do-gooders just crucified her back in the day.
Oh, I know.
Because she incorporated some realism in the ritual work and did her homework and things like that. And it's like you all are just you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Correct.
She is some sort of form of Christian, and who cares either way? She's literally portraying biblical truth in a way that people can consume it.
Yes.
So,
well, namely
totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Yeah, namely like the second movie, he goes down into essentially the underworld.
Yeah.
Slays the snake and saves the virgin. And it's like it's so beautiful.
It's a Christian allegory, like all the way.
Yes. It's very, very cool stuff.
Love me Harry Potter.
Yeah, me too, dude.
I binge it like 3 times a year.
It's so good.
And now they're trying to cancel her because of her
anti-trans or whatever.
Suggesting that her refusal to be delusional about the nature of biology and reality is causing her to be canceled, which is horrible.
Well, and it's happening everywhere. It's social Marxism leaching in through our universities.
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing that happened in Russia or the Soviet Union. It was there back then, and it tore them apart through this fucking college Marxism with all these ridiculous notions, more often than not pushed through the left. I don't like to subscribe to either side, but the evil right now is coming from the left, very much so. Just with all these ideology pushes. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I think he's the shit. And I've been doing some dives back into like his older podcast with Joe. And the first one that he did, he was talking about, and I want to say this was in like 2014, because I think Obama was still president.
Yeah.
But they were saying he was talking about him getting in trouble with his university for refusing to use these words, these up pronouns.
I saw that one. Yeah.
That was a huge thing. Yeah.
It was huge. And now people are going to jail for this kind of stuff in Canada. And that's what's really
Yeah.
scary is we got to make sure that like those kind of infringements on our First Amendment don't happen here.
Yeah.
It's
And they
terrifying.
will. It's
I know
happening.
it's
Yeah.
happening already.
Yeah, it's all Marxism. It's you create one group and if rights belong to groups, that means by definition you have to take rights from another group.
Yep.
That's why none of it ever works, and it's all done just to destabilize and create chaos, and then in comes the tyranny after
Correct.
you've destabilized the culture. So it's all cultural Marxism. Like, BLM's founders openly admit they're freaking Marxist provocateurs. They will
Yep.
say it in their own literature. Has nothing to do with the pigmentation in an individual's skin at all.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. My favorite game to play during like the back end of the BLM was like spot the black person at the BLM rally.
Right.
And you couldn't find them.
White Birkenstock wearing liberals that want to create misery to feel necessary.
Yeah. Trust
Yep.
fund babies that have no hardship, have never had to work a day in their life. And now they need some fight or flight in their life. And so they're doing shit like that because it's essential.
I've always thought the ideology is so funny. You're oppressed, therefore you're lesser. So let me help you because I'm better. That's racist.
Yeah, that's
That is
oppression in
racist.
itself.
Yes. I've always thought that was so funny.
Pulling the
Let
superiority
me help
card.
you with how I'm better than you. It's so funny.
Well, so how we come in and educate on that one is right back to what defines a person versus describes a person.
Yeah.
So you're defined by your probably your character and your actions. If you were to make a pyramid, it's not, are you black, white, polka dot, yellow? It's, are you kind? Are you honest? Are you funny? Then it's probably, are you a carpenter? Are you a farmer? What you do and who your character,
Right.
or your attributes are like at the top, and those are all based upon the individual. Then somewhere down there, yes, there are gender differences. They don't define you, but they're part of you. And then way down there, 8, 9, 10 on the list is probably your ethnicity, where you came from.
Right.
Things to be celebrated, nuances, differences. That's the great thing about America. It was never intended to be really a melting pot. It was let the people from Poland, Africa, Czechoslovakia come over here, be an individual first, be an American second, but then preserve the great things about your culture.
Right.
I want to go to your house on Wednesdays and learn about Polish cuisine and music and culture. So
and that's why there's Little Italy and Chinatown and like all these beautiful spots where culture is alive and well.
Yeah.
In a place where it's not native. And I think that's
so what the cultural Marxist does is they turn that, if you were to make a list, and that's a worthwhile thing, we should really list that out. Maybe your faith, what you believe, does define you in that top 3 or 4, but they turn that on its head. They ignore the individual and they say, no, you're defined by your cross-sectional group. Are you your gender, your race, and maybe are you disabled? They find things that should not define you, and they define you by them, and by definition that is racist or sexist or prejudicial, if you will. So it's very open and in your face that they indeed are the racists in America. I
couldn't agree more.
I give a fuck what your color is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love my neighbor. Best man wins. How can I help you? How can we get better as a community? That's it. That's it.
And that's all that should matter.
That's
I know.
it.
These problems are presented to us. We all feel this way, but these ideas are given to us.
What was great about the 80s? I know you guys see this too. If you look at movies in the 80s, the way you knew that we were absolutely, there's always going to be some racist knuckleheads in any system, any culture, but let's deal with 99.8% of us.
Yeah.
You can tell that this was an amazing country at that point because every movie was full of racist jokes.
Right.
Yeah.
Cutting on white guys cutting on black guys through the whole movie. Then by the end of the movie, they find a way to work together to beat the bad guy. The fact that there was not this uptight, and this went both ways, either Sanford and Son going black on white humor, and it could go
Yeah.
other way as well. Beverly Hills Cop, you could name any of these movies. That culture, the art reflecting the culture is like, these people back then are not uptight about race. They're Americans first, having a great old time about some of our differences, and they ultimately just love each other. They love
Yes.
each other. And so that's none of those movies could even be made today. Not a chance in hell.
No, not even
So
close. Well, even something that was a little closer than the 80s even was something like The Office. Office couldn't go
yeah,
with today's climate,
my
and that
favorite
had a
show.
lot of, it's so funny, and there's so
Yeah.
much racial jokes, and like they do it in the sense of like Michael Scott just being a dummy,
Yep.
and he doesn't
Yep.
even know what he's saying,
Yeah.
but it's so funny.
Yeah.
You're
And
right.
it's
So
so
that
well done.
that runs all the way up to 2013. You're right. So maybe something happened and reality did shift, and the world already ended in like 2016 or 2012.
Man, it was
Yeah.
CERN with that fucking Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2012 when they found the Higgs boson.
they
Yep.
did. I know. Trying
God
to
damn
bring
it.
it back, then chipping away at the firmament up there. I mean, oh my God.
Exactly.
Bring 'em down.
That's cool. So you
Yeah.
know about the firmament.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I can read.
Good. Interesting.
Oh, and I know that water seeks its own level. I can look up and see that something that I know my eyes can only see a few thousand miles away. So I know nothing is millions of miles away. So yeah,
Right.
the bigger the lie, the more people will tend to believe it if told enough. So if you
Who
can,
was that? Was that fucking, that was Hitler's like
yeah,
propagandist that said that, right?
yeah, that's his
Goebbels.
mantra, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if you can lie about our very nature of our being, the earth around us, the actual nature of reality itself, you can lie about anything.
Oh yeah.
So
Man.
the notion of us being monkeys on a spinning marble in a meaningless, expansive universe, and the ultimate meaninglessness of life is only about 500 years old. Before that, every culture said man is some sort of special creation. A bunch of gods came out of the sky, fucked and raped our women, created demigods, and the either a council of gods or the big god said, nope, flood, start over. That story is universal.
Yep.
But then somehow they survived the flood and created bloodlines, and that's how the kings and the elite come about, is they all think they're mini gods. But anyhow, the cosmology of every ancient culture is a flat stationary model with the earth in the center, Polaris up there, and the heavenly, it's not a floating ball of gas up there. Some sort of the stars are luminary beings rotating around us. Every single culture teaches a similar cosmology until the Jesuits about
Took over.
500
Yep.
years ago started spinning a different model for reality itself. So
Yep.
I don't claim to have all the answers, but I know we're not spinning right now 500 miles an hour.
Yeah.
While orbiting 1,000 miles per hour.
Yeah. So I don't get caught, I don't get up to, and so biblically, that's the whole thing too, is if you can make the Bible 1,000,000% teaches a stationary enclosed model. There's over 100 or more verses in context that teach the same thing that the ancients and every other culture taught. So that what I think may have happened is that whole flat earth, or I'll say it differently, challenging the NASA's lies about the nature of reality, that all got really popular right around when the Trump phenomenon started.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear much more about it because something happened to escalate dividing us and creating massive civil unrest. So were the people like us on to something? Not claiming that I have it all figured out about the construct of the universe, but I think we've been lied to.
I
sure.
completely agree.
For sure.
Yeah.
About 100%. Yes, we've been
Yeah.
lied to.
Yes.
In scripture, the moon is a she,
Yep.
and the sun is a he. In scripture,
Isis and Osiris.
yeah, in scripture, she gives her own light. That's been proven. Moonlight causes very different outcomes than sunlight. She's not reflecting the sun. She gives her own light. So I guess where I was going with that is back to Christians. The people that mock people that challenge NASA's cosmology are mostly Christians. They would tell me, if they're listening to me right now, that I'm nuts. Now people aren't going to listen to who Jesus is. I'm creating a situation where I'm sounding like a kook, so they won't hear the gospel. And I'm like, if Genesis 1 is a myth, then so is John 3:16.
Yeah.
You take the book, the same guy that walked on water, if you believe that, which I do, the same book teaches dragons, unicorns, flat earth, demigods, teaches that Apollos, the son of Zeus, is sitting in the bottomless pit and going to be let out during the end times to fucking wreak havoc on this place. So you believe the book or don't. So Christians, who I am one, but we're the problem. We don't even believe our own field manual.
Yeah.
Right.
And don't rightly divide it. 80% of it's written to Israel under the law, and it's for our learning, but it's not for our doctrine. It has nothing to do with us, pagan Gentiles out here 2,000 years later who don't have anything to do with that stuff.
Right off of that, dragons are 1,000,000% real. Whether they breathe fire or not, you can debate. But cultures forever and ever have depicted flying lizards.
Yep.
And
right there in the book of Job in absolute detail. Behold the behemoth.
There's no fossils because you have to be, their bones have to be what's the word? Hollow
Porous.
in order for that porous in order for them to fly, so they don't fossilize.
Yeah. Remember that story?
I've seen that. It's awesome.
Remember that story where I was with that chick at the Chicago Museum and they were showing us, I think it's Lucy, the T-Rex. And do you remember this? I don't know how old you were. I think you were like 11. And I kept calling you and I'm like, Avery, you don't really believe this shit, do you? There's no such thing as a T-Rex. And they had all these extra bones they didn't know what to do with. And I kind of developed a rapport with the person at the museum. And I'm like, well, what are all those extra bones? Don't they what if I took this and put them out here on some Wouldn't that make a little bit more sense? And they're like, you kind of have that's a pretty good point. So anything that looks like a dinosaur or T-Rex or whatever has never appeared one time in any find. That's all reconstructed.
Oh yeah.
Or it's the figment of their imagination. They'll take like one ankle bone and say, here's what Stegosaurus looked like.
Like, how'd you come up with that? Like, did any of your other guys come up with something like that?
The more zeros you insert in a fake timeline, the more you can be an expert. So the experts always want to make things older than they are. So if you can say new evidence suggests 12 billion years old, you can say whatever you want. I mean, I used to do this all the time. I'd ask my high school teacher, how can you tell the age of the dinosaur bone? And he would say, well, based upon the age of the dirt that it was found in. And I would say, how can you tell the age of the dirt? And he would say, well, based upon the dinosaur bone that was found in it.
Like, wait a minute.
Reasoning. So me saying it's 6,000 years old has the same amount of credibility as you saying it's 6 million or 6 trillion years old.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's all a matter of faith ultimately. Whether but you should be able to defend your faith with a reasonableness for what you believe. So, things like the second law of thermodynamics that say complex things burn out and become simpler things. Things don't start as simple and become more complex, or irreducible complexity. The I, as a complex machine, could never have existed even one iteration in a different form, meaning it has to have been an I.
Interesting.
So there are reasons for a Judeo-Christian or forget that, a creationist worldview that says if there's a watch that demands that there is a watchmaker, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Gets into that's the origin for right. So the evolution debate is an important one. That's really how they hijacked the schools. It wasn't all this critical race theory and teaching an 11-year-old how to give a blowjob and all that. Before all of that, they kicked God out of the schools.
Yep.
School should be a healthy debate to discuss Buddha, Jesus, Islam. As long as you're not indoctrinating, have at it.
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
debate,
Well,
or
you should teach the kids everything about it without trying to tell them this is what it is.
yeah,
Teach them all about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can take that route, which I like, or 2 + 2 is 4, and then don't touch any of it. But when they kicked God out and started teaching kids that they came from monkeys, that's when the battle was lost. So we're so late in the reclaiming the young minds. I mean, the evolutionary worldview says if it feels good, do it. You're just an animal. This is all we have.
It's very Satanistic,
It is
Luciferian in nature.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Because if you take it to that level, if a tadpole can magically become a hummingbird, can magically become a cat, can magically become a monkey, can magically become a human, then a human can become a god. So it is
Right.
It is very Luciferian. There's no doubt about it. Or if it's atheistic, then it's just totally hopeless. You're just a dirt sandwich. So yeah. So yeah, the evolution creation thing is kind of still the foundational, where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going?
Right.
Type of worldview debate. So
Yeah.
So I have a question for you then. In that case, what do you think about the theory that we are experiments and that it wasn't necessarily evolution that led to these other iterations of humanoids, but they were just failed models, and that we're like the final form, the perfect specimen created by these Anunnaki, these creatures that jumped from the 10th planet Nibiru?
well, I don't personally ascribe to there being plane is a French word that just means wandering stars. So I think those are like 7 of the 9 titans that rebelled. So God's like, you got to go the opposite way of your kin who are going this way, they go the other way. But I think all of that simply matches Genesis 6. I think the scripture already talks about the validity of what you're saying. These fallen angels came down to Mount Hermon, led by Azazel, and said, we're going to take us some wives of whoever we want.
Earth girls are easy.
We're
Goddamn right.
We're going to teach the men warfare. We're going to teach the women about makeup. We're going to teach about cosmetics, how to make certain drugs and herbs, and totally set up shop as gods. And then, it gets really deep. And so when they reproduce, they create these demigods. Like in your mind, think, so Moses writing in about 1000 BC is already looking back in time, saying that these fallen Nephilim were men of renown. That means they were celebrities. So in his time, he already knew they were already popular. We know them: Perseus, Hercules, the Anunnaki, Enlil, all these characters. It's all there biblically that yes, fallen angels, you can call them little gods, came down here and corrupted the bloodline so that there would be nothing redeemable left. So I think the secret societies, something happened that the Bible says that it would happen in those days and after that. So did Og the giant survive, hold on to the end of the flood? Was there still Nephilim genetic material in Noah's daughters-in-law? We know there wasn't in his sons. Noah and his family were saved not because he didn't look at a pair of boobies and smoke a cigarette.
No,
it wasn't that he was sinless. His generation was not corrupted by this Anunnaki stuff. But then something happened after the flood that they came back. So I think there's validity in what you're saying. Did they do it through occult science, DNA splicing? Did they actually fuck our women? I don't think is it all of that. Something X happened that that it doesn't have to be either or, something tampered with the bloodline for sure.
Beautiful.
And then in the books I write, the male descendants of the Nephilim, so the scripture teaches that you get your blood from your daddy. You get your life is in the blood. The blood comes from your father. So the male descendants, there's a scripture that says a certain race of giants called the Raphaim will not be resurrected. It says they die and they rise not. They're not human. Where's God gonna park their disembodied spirit? They're in no man's land. So the male line are the giants. The female line become the fae, or the kind of the fairy realm. And then you just start doing genetics. You have all this, they hump one another, and you have somebody that's 1/8 fairy humping somebody that's 2/4 giant, and you get dwarves, and you get I'm telling you, the world that makes the Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings look vanilla and boring. All that stuff.
Shit.
It's all real. So then I think this side of the flood, they came back. They were able to start some of that up again, to a lesser extent. And the remnant of that are the secret colleges and societies who all claim their daddies are gods and goddesses. In these covens, they're somehow the descendants of all that business. So that's kind of that's generally what I believe. And again, was there a second incursion? Some people think that Sodom and Gomorrah was God dealing with a second incursion, because it wasn't really so much about homosexuality in the context of that. Remember, the angels are brought to Lot's door, and the people want to have sex with who? The angels. And then it says that they went, at that time, men were going after strange flesh. That means they're again messing with hybrids and animals and all that. So it seems like God was like, you're trying this again. I'm gonna rain brimstone down on you because you're fucking with the bloodlines again. So
interesting.
So it's in circles that believe similar to how we do, there's lots of debates on, like, I get that there was a flood to give humanity some chance, just genetically speaking, of having something redeemable left.
Right.
But what if that obviously was not a total judgment, because they came back? I mean, Israel, what did they have to do to clear out, to gain the promised land? They had to kick out the giants.
Yeah. Who's speaking in the verse where it's something along the lines of, and there were giants in those days, some tall as cedar?
Yeah.
Who's
So that the reference to Og of Bashan, in the book of Amos, there's a reference to him being as tall as a cedar.
So that's what I'm getting at. A full-grown cedar can get up to about 60 feet tall. Yeah. So if you're a 60-foot tall giant, that's what we've got into before, Cam, is like you could build the pyramids like Legos.
Right. Yeah. So if God stopped permitting that, and it kind of dilutes, by the time you get out to Goliath at 13 feet tall, he's a little feller.
Yeah.
He has 6 fingers and 6 fingers. I don't remember if it's toes, 6 fingers and an extra row of teeth.
Yeah.
So, but again, if
like
he
a
has
fucking shark.
Yeah. If he's not a direct paternal descent, then he still has a soul and he's still redeemable. But I'm telling you, there's something to the fact that there's some reprobates maybe still walking around today that are direct descendants of these guys, and they are devils there's nothing, they're not human.
Yeah.
You think that's what's going on
around here for a few thousand years?
With what, Cam?
Do you think that's what's going on with the Royals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something like that going on with. So remember, the old world order, we always talk about the new world order, but people don't stop and say, well, okay, well, what was the OWO? It was the divine right of kings, where there's no pretense about it. You have, these divine, little god men who are descended from Zeus or whatever, and they're entitled to rule over the cattle who are the peasants and us. That model only has limited, you can use religion to take tithes, and you can kind of motivate people, and it has a limited shelf life. So what happened is the secret societies said, let's take biblical principles of, what does it say in the book of Mark? Is it not lawful for me to do what I want to do with my own dirt? The fact that if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. All these biblical concepts. They're like, well, fuck this. We're running out of money in Europe. Let's go start America, and let's use principles that are from God, from his word, and raise revenue so that we can go ahead and launch, what's on the dollar bill, right? Announcing the birth of the New World Order. It's right on our currency.
Yeah.
So that's why America is such a mixed bag, right? It got away from the old world, the divine right of kings, and the New World Order is more ruled by bankers, high finance, corporatism, fascism. But guess what? Just look at what's the one royal family that survived all of that. And I know there's some stragglers. It's this house of, Saxe-Gothberg. It's the Windsors, right? It's the British royals. So all the old world to New World Order is like a Soprano style gang fight where they used all of the intellectuals and revolutionaries. They wiped out their competition, and the one that's left, that's on top of the pyramid, still running shit. That's why Charles, a book, I know you guys don't like to read a lot, but you should at least skim it. There's a book called The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. And you don't want to arrogantly assume who the Antichrist is, but it's okay to look at contenders.
Correct.
And it walks through, like, in his coat of arms is a mocking of the book of Revelation. In his symbolism, he takes you right through either who he as a megalomaniac wants to be, or maybe who he's going to be. Or yeah. So it's interesting. But back to the Anunnaki.
Was that Charles, you said?
Yeah.
Charles.
Well, and I often thought it was going to be I thought Queen Elizabeth, who had an obviously unnaturally long life, thanks to a lot of innocent babies.
Adrenochrome.
But there's something to that. I mean, they're right at or near the top of the pyramid. But yeah, with the whole Anunnaki thing, I think we would probably believe almost the same thing with just different labeling on it. Something of the same thing is covered, and most cultures have that same identical belief. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff for sure. So tinkering with the bloodline. It's really all about subjugation and setting up little god men down here to run the show on behalf of their archons or whomever they answer to and whomever they answer to.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, guys. We are an hour and 20 minutes in.
Oh yeah.
We could, which is fine, but Cameron does have to go to league, so
I got a little bit of time. I don't want to cut it too short. I'm having some fun.
Of course. No, yeah, I just meant we can kind of wind down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab a wind down beer real quick.
Sounds good. Yeah, commercial break. Sponsor me, Zin. God damn it.
Yeah. So what do you all have planned for the next upcoming shows, or what's your creative process to kind of, do you sketch them out topically or?
A little bit. We just talk about ideas every once in a while. We want to have more friends on, obviously, and kind of educate and blow their minds. We want to make a series out of that, actually, where we just spew this stuff at our friends who aren't really into it. I had the idea that we're gonna do one where we eat a bunch of hot wings, like hot ones.
Yeah.
And ask each other tough questions. And I thought that'd be good content.
Love it. Yeah, add some fun in there. I've watched all the shows faithfully. I think you're all well prepared. You mix in humor. As you can tell, none of us have arrived and know everything, especially with the disinformation and the control of information. So just the willingness to just go at the issues and try to figure them out and seek out the truth it's like a huge, big deal. So
Yeah.
just again, kudos to you guys from just being brave to do this. You will get opposition. It will happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
I think
Feel
people
it?
are all too afraid of opposition. I
Oh
think,
yeah.
like you were saying before, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And the only way that you get better at sword fighting is by fucking sword fighting people.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
sit there and just practice your sword moves in your room all day, you're never going to become a swordsman.
Yep.
Yeah. And the three of us would fight and die for people that would cancel us. That's what I just can't believe. Like,
Yeah.
we actually do love our enemy. We don't want any, like, the greatest thing you can get to in life is wanting everybody to be successful.
Yeah.
I agree.
Only competing like with yourself, your own objectives and goals. You're not looking to squash anybody. So it's just like, it's all about power and control, honestly. So
Oh yeah.
Very much so. But I think
Yeah.
it says more about us than it does about them. And in the end, your character prevails. And
yeah,
I would do it again and again. Like, I don't know. Some of us are put here for light and some are cattle to be led. And
Yep.
we have to be good guard dogs, dude. Keep the wolves out.
Definitely.
Yep.
I definitely got a little bit cynical along the ways there. I used to think everybody was a shill working for the other side. And I've kind of come back to a little bit more grace, and like, things are just not always black and white. Like,
Yep.
even like like Alex Jones says, like, for a while, he would never go far enough to like name the actual secret societies involved. But then he later explained himself and he said, well, in his belief, it's that within those different societies, that evil isn't just exclusive to this group or that group. So he just wanted to take on evil. It's a reasonable explanation, but the fact that what they've done to him, it'd be awfully hard for him to be an actor at this point. So
Right.
it just awfully hard with he is the test balloon for eliminating the First Amendment in his show trial.
Some fucking kangaroo court.
He couldn't even defend himself. He couldn't even say the words "I'm innocent." The whole trial was about how much he was going to be punished, not
exactly
if he was guilty or innocent. So along the way, you guys will probably go through this. You get so hardcore, you like kind of see like enemies everywhere, and it's probably not always the case. It could be, they can also, you should never, they're going to disappoint you and say something you're going to disagree with too. So ultimately, I now swallow the meat, spit out the bones. And
I love that.
There's always good information, but hey, if they're paid by the other side, thank you for giving me some good information. So yes, that's a little bit of advice. Like, don't stop watching. Like, if David Icke says something you don't like or whatever, they might have 90% good information and you can discern the other 10. So
correct. Yeah. God, that's a great saying. Swallow the meat and spit out the bone.
Yep.
I love that.
Always good content, and then none of us are ever gonna fully get all of it anyhow. So
I don't think we're meant to. I think the keepers of the light hide that truth from us, on purpose.
Yeah, you can look
back one side a little bit and another side a little bit, and they compartmentalize it, and then they're like, "All right, dance."
Look back on things you said 5 years ago and be like, well, I disagree with what the 5 year ago version of me said.
Oh, I know. I'm excited to listen to this in 5 years and be like, oh, Cam. Oh, so funny.
Gotta say, you guys are both looking good. But why is the right arm bigger than the left arm, both of you?
Hey, whoa. What?
Change the angle.
Dude.
The camera distorts things, son.
It's my beer drinking arm.
Yeah, yes. True.
What are you drinking lately, Avery? We're both rocking. What are you
Corona.
Corona.
So I've been going through all the shitty American beers to kind of really figure out what my favorite is. I think Coors Banquet will always be my favorite, but then I went to Miller. Man. Yeah. I went to Miller Lite. That's really good. I don't mind that at all. Guess what I'm drinking now? Busch Light.
Busch.
Like a proper hillbilly. I like them.
Hey, hug
family
a
in Michigan
hillbilly.
drinks
They're the
those.
reason that we haven't been steamrolled.
Yeah.
So
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
gun toting hillbilly, baby.
It's a
Yeah.
very good point. Hate them or love them, but they're keeping the boat floating.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll probably obviously Corona's my all-time favorite. Can't
Yeah.
beat a Mexican lager. I think I'll probably always go back to Coors Light though.
Yeah, I love
No
me
Bud
those
Light,
banquets.
obviously.
Yeah, no Bud Light. I don't want to spontaneously combust drinking a Bud Light or anything like that. I don't know what's gonna happen anymore.
I love
Probably,
those
they're probably
videos.
putting experimental mRNA tech in the fucking Bud Light now.
Yeah.
That's what the whole push was.
Uh,
You know how corrupt our medical industry is, and I work in it. But again, there are some solid people trying to fight that system from within too. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
had a doctor's appointment today, just on some getting upper 40s kind of guy stuff. And my doctor, I told she's a woman, and I said, "Yeah, I don't have any mRNA or nanotech in me. My
Hell
immune system
yeah.
is God given." And you should have seen how many times we amen to that. So again, something can be systemically like totally opposite of what we believe, but there's still little like heroes trying to fight that shit. You'll find
Yes.
some good ones once in a while.
yeah.
In that realm, have you ever heard of Andrew Kaufman?
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
He's
Yeah.
very Avery, have you ever heard of him?
Uh, no, go ahead and tell me. It might
So
spark something.
so Dr. Andrew Kaufman, he created this, it's like either a movie or a documentary that came out recently called Terrain. But
Okay.
essentially he pushes this idea called terrain theory. He doesn't believe in viruses.
Ah,
He believes in something called an exosome, which is the byproduct of cellular degeneration. When your cell
okay.
breaks down, and what they see, how they like see a virus is they'll look under a microscope of your damaged cells, and they'll be like, "Oh wow, look, there it is."
Yeah.
But what they're looking at is an exosome, a broken off piece of your cell, but it's
Okay.
present every time that there is this reaction in your body. And I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to it.
Right.
The indoctrination's deep in the school system, so I very much believe in, excuse me, viruses.
Yeah.
But it's very compelling when you hear him talk. Eddie Bravo had him on.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what to believe. That's the scary part about the world right now.
Yeah.
I know you have to really triangulate things, read something that's very much biased for, against, then try to find something real vanilla and neutral that doesn't have any, dog in the fight, coalesce all of it and try to humbly land on something. I
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
it's hard. It really is.
And what's sad
Yeah.
is nobody's doing that. They're not using the scientific method to look at one side, look at the other side, look in the middle, compile it. What they're
Yeah.
doing is they're listening to their one side that they trust, and then they almost, push off any ideas from the other side, regardless of what the ideas are, because it's not their team.
Yep.
It's weird.
Totally. Oh yeah.
It's weird what's going on, man.
Ooh.
All right. I
Well,
can tell he's done.
yeah, it's that time, gentlemen.
Shut
This
it
was
up.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I had such a great conversation.
That was
Oh,
awesome.
got that sword on him
Get the
always.
sword going.
I love it.
Always.
I need to
I'm
start
gonna
keeping my
get
sword.
I'm gonna get my Gandalf pipe going and
Hell yeah.
just relax. But yeah, yep. Keep up the great work, guys. This was a blast. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Of course.
Thank
Yeah.
you
We'll get
so
you back
much.
on.
Yeah, we got to get you back on soon. We'll go into the
Yeah.
bloodlines or
Yeah, we'll
all
go
sorts
deep
of
on.
shit.
I
Yeah,
know
man.
we went on quite the tour of topics.
That's
that
what
I love it.
happens.
I
Yeah.
love
That's
it.
what
It's,
happens.
yeah, we don't try and structure it too hard, and so the conversation just flows, and I like that better.
I
Yeah.
like it. So all
Yeah,
right, guys.
man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Avery, don't sign
Yeah.
off. Are you down to do an outro with me before?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey,
Bet.
and Avery will be in town soon, Cameron. So make sure y'all come over to the house.
Yes. When are you in town?
Get in on Saturday and I don't leave until the following Sunday. So
No shit. I'm going up to the valley tomorrow, and we'll be there for like 2 weeks.
really.
Fuck
All
it.
right.
Let's do a live
Sick.
podcast. I'll bring all my shit.
Yo.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hope I see you guys at the house. That'd be great.
I
Yeah.
would love that so much.
Let's do it.
All
Oh,
right,
dude.
guys.
Zane, thank you so much, man. Have a
Yeah.
great rest of your night.
Thank
Later,
you.
dog.
See you, son. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Okay, bet. Hell yeah. Dude, beautiful episode.
Yeah,
Holy
I told you,
shit.
man. His brain is just like
Wow. Yes, it is. My mind is blown. I felt like
yeah.
a monkey for like the first half.
I know. I noticed we both were like just sitting there absorbing. It's so
I did.
funny.
I would have a thought and then he would say a couple more words and I was like, oh, that thought's gone. New thought. Like, every time. Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah,
That was very cool.
I knew he'd be good for this show.
Yes, yes. And that's perfect. You're gonna be in town. Let's do a live something or other.
Let's do it. That'll be so fun, bro.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I just wanted to do like a little outro and
Yeah.
tell people about what's been cooking on the
Okay.
stove over
Oh
here.
yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've listened this far, God bless you. And also we have a new Instagram at Live from the Ley Line, spelled like the title of the podcast. On there, I've got my link tree in the bio. We've got the YouTube feed, so you can watch the video if you'd like, if you're listening on Spotify or whatever. And then we've also got the Patreon link.
Yes.
All right. Now is time for you guys to show some support. If you want
Yep.
this show to grow, because it will, I will put all that money back right into the podcast, get you stickers. Just look at what the deal is. I
Yeah.
think you'll enjoy it. But yes, I'll check it out. We're gonna get some t-shirts working if we get enough patrons early enough. I want to get some merch that we can wear on there
Yeah, that'd be sick.
because that would be dope. Rock a little new t-shirt maybe every couple episodes or something.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would love that. Well, I won't waste too much of the people's time, but yeah, I just want to let
Oh, good.
everybody know.
Yeah.
Go to the fucking Instagram, follow, Linktree, Patreon, subscribe, and who knows, I might shout you out.
Do it or perish. Honestly,
You what?
I said go and do that or perish.
Peasant. Oh, I love it. Avery, you're
Yeah.
the shit, my brother. I
Yep.
appreciate you.
You too,
This was a
brother.
good one, man.
I'm excited.
Yes, yes. All right. See you later, folks.
All right, later, man.